Hi everyone, welcome to the video and I am starting this video series on 30 days of Leetcode JavaScript challenge where I will be explaining some concepts of JavaScript that will help you to solve the JavaScript challenge for that day, and I will explain some more concepts so that the person who is watching the video will have a good knowledge of JavaScript and he or she can solve the questions problems based on that. And these concepts will also help in while doing web development in JavaScript. So let's start the video. Okay, so what we are going to learn today, so I will be explaining you functions in JavaScript and high order functions. So in this first challenge, the concept that has been used is known as closure. Okay. So before explaining it, I will be there is a prerequisite for anyone who is watching this video. You must be aware of the things like how variables are used in JavaScript, like let, const, and where are the keywords that are used for creating the variables and how these works. You should have knowledge of that. I will not be explaining those basic things, and you should have some knowledge of the for loops and while loops, other things. These concepts are very similar to the other languages, but if you have worked on JavaScript, then that's good. And if you know how for and while loop works in any other language, then that's also okay because it's very similar to other languages. So let's start the video. So there are basically some syntaxes that you can write to create the functions. So what are functions? Functions are basically some type of blocks where we can write some logic, and that logic will we can use anywhere in the code. We can use multiple types of functions. So the functions are basically some type of logic that is written at somewhere, and we can use that logic multiple times. That's what a function is known as. So there are four types of functions that is in JavaScript. First one is the normal function that we write, normal syntax. Is we use a function keyword for creating this type of function. Okay, let's say we are creating a function print, and that will simply console.log a hello world. Hello everyone. So this is the simple function, and if we call this function, it should print hello everyone. So it's printing hello everyone. Okay, this is the normal function that is present in JavaScript. And also in JavaScript we can either use the semicolons, or we should avoid it. Generally people prefer to use semicolons, so that if there is any issue, then it will not cause any problem. Also in TypeScript, while doing TypeScript, the semicolons are important because sometimes it checks whether semicolons are present and it gives error. So try to like write semicolon, that's okay. The second one is the anonymous functions. So basically what are anonymous functions? Functions that does not have any name. Anonymous means that does not have any ID. In real world, anonymous means that that person does not have any identification. Okay, so a function that does not have any name is known as anonymous function. So we can assign any function to a variable. In JavaScript, we can assign the function variables functions. Okay, let's say we are creating a print some function. So we can write here function a comma b. So this is the anonymous function. This does not have any name. We are assigning this is a variable basically. Sum is a variable, and we are assigning this anonymous function to this sum. So this function does not have any name. So this function is known as anonymous function, and this sum works same as this print works. We have to call the sum like this, sum 1 comma 2, and this will return some value, and we can store that value in a variable. and we can just print out that. Okay. So that's what is anonymous function. So there is also one thing, that is arrow function. Arrow functions are nothing but for arrow function we have to create the anonymous functions always, because we cannot directly create the arrow function without any name. For arrow function we have to just change this thing in some type of syntax, and it becomes a arrow function. So what is an arrow function? I will create the same sum function with different names. Okay. Here we have just removed this function keyword, and this has been written. And for the function, in place of function we are writing here an arrow, which is known as arrow. Because of this function is known as arrow function. Now this is same as this function. It will perform the same logic. We call 1 comma 2 here. So this will print the arrow, print the sum again. So this 3 is printed because of this sum, and this 3 is printed because of arrow function. So these are three are the functions. And there is also one thing we can do. We can return, omit the return, like this keyword. We can avoid this keyword when we are writing arrow functions, and if there is only one statement inside our logic, like in the curly braces, I have written only one statement, that is return statement. We are just returning the a plus b. If there is only one statement, then we can avoid our avoid using these curly braces. So what we can do is, you can just write a sum 3, and we are passing two variables a b, and we just write a plus b. This will return, same thing that has been written here. If we if we print again this thing, printed by omit return arrow function and sum 3. So print by omit return function, this will do the same thing. When we have just one statement inside our function, then we can just use that function without using return keyword, if we are just returning only one thing. Okay. So that's what the functions are. And there is also one more function, that is IIFE. The full form of this is immediately invoked function expressions. Immediately invoked function expressions. So basically, these are the function expressions that has been immediately invoked. So if we go to this function is an anonymous function, and we can convert this as an immediate invoked function using this, like const total 2, because total has been used here. If const total 2, we can just write this function as an anonymous function. We can copy this and create a curly braces here, and we can just paste that. Now this is an anonymous function, this is an immediately invoked function, and for immediately invoked function we have to pass the variables inside that. We have, if we pass here 2 comma 4 5, then this will be immediately invoked. This is a function expression, and we are invoking it immediately. As we are creating it, we are immediately invoking it also. That's why this is known as immediately invoked function. And this will just return the sum of the value. So total 2 will contain the 7, and if we console.log total 2, then it will print 7. Here 7 is printed. So that's all about the functions in JavaScript. The normal syntax function is this. If we write using the function keyword, anonymous function is when we are assigning function without name. to a variable that is known as an anonymous function. And arrow functions are those, if we are just we if we are not writing the function keyword and we are using the arrow function, arrow operator, then this is known as arrow function. Okay. And if we are omitting the return because we have only one statement inside our function, then this function, this can be also used because we use most of the times when we are doing some map reduce, and these are the functions that is inside javascript. While doing this function is mostly used. That's why I have explained it here also. Okay, and this is the immediately invoked function. I have not used it in any project, because if you are just doing the sum immediately, then why don't you write just that thing directly? So that's all about it. Okay. Let's understand what are high order functions. So high order functions. High order functions are nothing but these are also the functions, but a function that takes a function as an argument or returns a function. That is, if a or b is if a or b, either of a or b is a function, then it is a high order function. If the return value is a function, then also this function will be known as high order function. So let's create some function, like a create let's create a function that is, mm, get function introduction, print introduction. So this is a function print introduction, and I am taking a get name as function inside that. So I am printing here my name is get name. So this function has been passed inside this, and we are calling this function inside the print introduction function. And get name function, we have to create a get name function also. What does get name function? It returns a value that is Abhinandan. So get name returns my name. Now if I call the introduction function, then the introduction function is called and get name has been passed inside this. This name has been passed. Okay, inside that this get name function is called with this string value. So this should be printed inside that. So let's check. So my name is Anandan has been printed. So this print introduction function, because this is taking get name as an argument, that is a function. So this print introduction function is a high order function. What if a function returns the high order function? So we can also create this function inside this. Okay, let's write it somewhere else. Let's copy it. Okay. Now what we can do is we can multiply. Mm, okay, let's do add, and we are passing a, and there is also a function b. Mm, yes, function add 2 comma b that returns a plus b. Return add 2. or we can write add b. So inside this add function, what I am doing, inside this add function, a has been passed, and this function is defined inside this add function. It takes b as an argument and returns the a plus b. So I am returning add b from this function. So this seems might be confusing. So if I call this, then you will get more about it. So like if I call this function with this a variable, then this will return this add b function. And what is add b? Add b will be the same a, and the um, add b will be a function that takes b as an argument and returns the a plus b. So if we store this value, const add a equal to add of 5. Now if I print this add a, then this will be a function. This is a function, that function add b has been returned here. So we have to call add a again with some with b value, that b is required for add a. Okay, so add b has been assigned to this variable. Okay, so if I call this function console.log add a, so now 7 will be printed. Here 7 has been printed. So because 4 was passed inside this, add 4 is passed, so 4 goes into this, and inside that function add b takes b as an argument and returns a plus b, that is 4 plus b. It will assign the 4 in place of a, so it will return 4 plus b. So function definition changes from that, and it will return add b. So now this function has been returned. If you call with by 3, then 4 plus 3, that is 7, will be returned, and we are printing this. This thing is this is also an high order function, because we are returning a function. This was also a high order function because we were passing the function as an argument. But this is also known as closure. This thing is also known as closure. Why this is closure? A closure is basically a integral of high order function basically. So what it does, it keeps track of the values that is defined inside the variable. Like because this a has been defined inside this function, a has been defined, and we are calling add b function here. This function has been returned here, and we are calling this add b here. We are not calling add a. This add b has been called. This is a add b function. Then how it can retain the value 3? How 4 has been retained? So when we are calling this add b, so inside that add b is passed, and it checks whether a is present, whether a is present in the scope of b or not. Though so in this scope a is not present. A is not present in scope of b, scope of add b. So it goes to the higher order, its previous parent. Basically, parent of add b is add a. So it checks whether a is present in this environment or not. So it checks and it finds like a is present inside that because it has been passed earlier. So it just return 4 plus 3 7. So the environment basically this environment because a was not present inside this, and a was present in the previous environment, previous function or parent function. Previous, that can be any parent. It is not always right that it will be just previous function. It will be a grandparent, or it will be a grandparent. So the if the variable that is found in any parent function, those environment, those the environment of the parent function is known as lexical environment. We just call this environment a name. This name is known as lexical environment. And basically closure is something that has track of its variables in the lexical environment. It will just find the previous values, and it will keep checking if the value is present previous uh, in the previous function or not, in its lexical environment or not. Basically lexical environment is the environment of all the parents of the given function. That's what closure is. So hope you got the point. What is this closure? So that's all about the basic introduction about the functions, what are functions and what are high order functions, and what is closure. Closure is basically a high order function that keeps track of its variables in its lexical environment. Okay, that's all about it. So let's go to the question that today's question. So write a function, create hello world. It's return a new function that always returns hello world. Because it's returning a function. That's why it is known as closure. This create whole world is a closure. Okay, so this is returning a function here. We are calling this this function might have been called the const f is equal to create hello world, and after calling the f function the hello world will be printed. So this value was retained in inside that, and if you are calling this f function then this hello world will be printed. So that's what closure does. So we have to just return here hello world. If you can see the code without function, then this is the our code. So inside the create hole, this is a function and it's returning a function. We have to just return a um, we can define the const also, const message. You can define the function and we can return the message here. So this this will keep track. This create hello world will keep track of the variable that has been defined in its lexical environments. So that's why it is known as closure. If I run this, so this will be accepted and it's returning the hello world. So you might have got the idea about what is closure and what are functions and what are high order functions. So there are certain high order functions that are present in JavaScript, that is map, reduce, filter, and we use those for doing some type of logic that we perform in our web development projects, or in while you are working on at some company or anywhere else. Then you will be using those functions to increase the readability and code quality and efficiency of your code. That's why high order functions and closures are very important, because sometimes when closure are needed, because sometimes we don't want to say mm, to show everyone that what is present inside our message. We only want to give a function to the user, so that he can just pass their value, like this is the arguments that are passed. So uh, he can pass the value, and he don't know about what has been written inside that. So this is basically an abstraction. We are doing abstraction. This is an object oriented programming concept. So basically we are abstracting our message so that user don't have any knowledge about what's going inside that, and he just calling the function and it will return something that is useful to him. So that's why closure is used in our web development while doing development. That's why closure is defined, and closure is very important. Okay, so thanks for watching the video. We will be continuing in our next video, and I will be pulling some more concepts, and we will be continuing this daily JS challenge till 30 days. Okay, thank you. Thanks for watching the video. Bye.